Howdy, partner, and welcome to Rising. Let's saddle up, shall we?
You got your Texas roost going or something?
I don't know why I went with that today. We both did radars, monologues on the same subject. We are not ready to let the Super Bowl go.
Do you know, I didn't even think that I was this impassioned by the topic.
Yeah, I found out yesterday.
Yeah, I realized that I truly was deeply,
So did I.
deeply connected to this.
I realized that you were passionate about it, not me, you.
Yes, because your responses were very, oh, I don't want to talk about it. Oh my gosh. Well, we're on a talk show, a conversation show. You got to talk about it. This is the biggest news.
We're going to talk about a lot of things.
Coming up on Rising, we have more updates on Nancy Guthrie's kidnapping as new footage has been released and a person has even been questioned.
That's horrifying footage. You probably saw it. We'll discuss. Plus, a former police chief's testimony about a phone call between himself and President Trump that has to do with Jeffrey Epstein. That went viral. We will definitely discuss that.
And the big game halftime show drama, as we referenced, is not over. Republicans are now calling for an investigation into it. I'll get to that. But first, Robby, what's on your radar?
So one more point from me, and then I'll promise I'll be done, about the halftime show wars, which are dividing conservatives and liberals. Yesterday, my co-host, Lindsey, argued that Bad Bunny was undeniably the more successful performer and was watched by more than 150 million people, whereas the Turning Point USA halftime show, which streamed on YouTube, was viewed by just 5 million people. Now, it's true, the conservative hostility toward Bad Bunny, whose provocative statements against ICE and against immigration enforcement have alienated right-leaning NFL fans, did not make a sizable dent in the audience for the Super Bowl halftime show, which is reliably watched by millions of people every year. But it should be noted that as a result of its counter-programming, TPUSA's YouTube channel added 1 million subscribers, and that's huge. It's certainly the biggest audience increase for a political channel lately. The channel now has 6.5 million subscribers, so that extra million that they just gained is a huge chunk of their overall total. No other way around it. It would be a big win for TPUSA, regardless of whether you personally liked Kid Rock's performance. And I say this with some frequency, but it bears repeating. YouTube is the future of television. If you're not on YouTube, I don't know what you're doing. YouTube has won the streaming wars. It is over. Non-YouTube platforms will be scrambling to keep up in the near future. That includes traditional television providers, cable providers, other streaming platforms. I can tell you, if I put out a video on YouTube that added 1 million subscribers to my channel or to the Hills channel, we would consider that a massive success. I'm not alone. Any political media organization or commentator would feel the same way. Again, YouTube is where this is all headed. It's really difficult to build a channel from scratch or to significantly increase your subscriber numbers. The live stream of TPUSA's All-American halftime show itself has by now received more than 20 million views. There's 5 million to begin with, but you can go back and watch it. It's got 20 million. That's a massive number. Take a look.
Turning Point USA's All-American halftime show hitting over 20 million views on YouTube, with Turning Point reporting between 40 and 50 million views tuned in across all platforms. Headliner Kid Rock joining Laura Ingraham to tout the show's success and to discuss why he chose to perform his cover of Cody Johnson's Till I Can't.
I knew they wanted to have a program that's great on, family and faith and great music. And I did it to honor him and his fans because he wasn't able to do it. So I said, well, he's going to have a lot of fans, and let's try to play one of his songs.
Again, you don't have to like Kid Rock or to like Turning Point USA or to like the performance, but 20 million views on YouTube is nothing to sneeze at. Fewer than 1% of videos get more than 100,000 views, and fewer than 0.1% get more than 10 million. In the streaming wars, a battle for your attention that will dominate the decade as traditional sources of revenue for television companies dries up and everybody moves online, this was a huge, huge victory for alternative media and for alternative content. And I felt like I should make that point, Lindsey, because, oh my God.
Oh
my
sorry.
God.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Okay,
sorry.
you can be falling asleep. You can be poo-pooing this.
No, I'm
but
not.
No
I'm
one.
not. Sorry, I hadn't got a lot of
20 million. Oh my God. 20 million views is a huge success. 1 million subscribers added is a huge success. If you said that was going to happen, if you said you were going to get 1/10 of that, you would still do this. That's crazy. It's great. So in this narrative that this was some blowout, that nobody watched it, that it did very badly, of course more people watched the Super Bowl. They were watching the Super Bowl. They left their TV on.
No, the specifically was halftime numbers that were the highest in history, but go off.
Because people left their TVs on.
People turn them on. More people watch the halftime than the actual game. Most people complained that the game was actually boring and not that interesting.
Well, people had the game on, and then there are some people, you're right, who are not watching the game and just turned on for the Super Bowl. But that's not like, that's not all due to Bad Bunny. But I'm not trying to malign Bad Bunny. I had no problem with the performance. I really don't. And I didn't, Kid Rock, I watched it finally, and the lip syncing was really bad. Did I think it was technically that impressive? I actually didn't. But 20 million people watched it on YouTube, and it added 1 million subscribers to their page, which is amazing. We know that's amazing. We know YouTube numbers. Our show's on YouTube. I can tell you that is a huge success. So good for them.
You know that song like, "We are the champions."
Yeah, I know it quite well.
No time for
Queen
lose.
song.
Okay, this feels like we have to celebrate the loser. This is an L. It doesn't, I don't care.
It's not a zero-sum game.
NFL had, 67 million views on the YouTube video, and that was yesterday. Okay, it's still not comparative. We get it. Turning Points has a popular channel. They probably gained 1 million subscribers, too, over at the NFL to watch this game. Or Apple Music, he had way more millions of streams on the catalog that they put together that reference what he performed at the actual Super Bowl. What are you talking about? Stop trying to. No, I know, but we keep talking about, like, Kid Rock did an interview. And he keeps talking about, or not Kid Rock, everyone else around the situation did an interview and said, we have to look at the amount of people per household. So we got 5 million on that first night. There were probably 3 or 4 people per YouTube screen. Okay, there were probably 10 or 20 people per party to celebrate the big game. So if we want to multiply 135 by 10, sure, then the numbers are even more drastically different. These arguments are exactly like a participation trophy. Since I have a kid and who's going to lose sports games, you know what I'm going to tell her? You lost this one. Try again. Dust yourself off and try again. No, because they framed it as a competitive thing.
I'm not framing it that way.
No, Turning Point did. The All-American other option, like the one that we were watching, wasn't American.
You're deluding
and
yourself.
You took an L.
This is a huge success for Turning Point. Huge
success. No, but it's not a huge success for the message they were trying to send to the NFL. Nothing happened. Nobody turned off the NFL. The NFL had its highest ratings ever for Super Bowl. So what was the point? People who like Kid Rock watched Kid Rock.
The point is they added 1 million subscribers to their YouTube channel.
Okay.
They had 20 million people watching.
And they paid millions for a show to happen.
Success.
Congratulations. Like every time you do something that benefits your business, you can do that every day. But when you put it up against the Super Bowl,
you cannot just add 1 million.
No, you can benefit your business in any way, have a concert any day. They decided to go up against the Super Bowl and lost in that particular competition.
It's not that easy to add massive.
Okay. And it's not that easy to compete with the Super Bowl or one of the most streamed artists of our generation.
You're right.
And so they learned that quickly that this ain't the 90s. And nobody cares about Kid Rock besides the 20 million people that watched it from the news
20
channel
million
that collected it and said, you know what, I'm going to take a clip to say how trash this was with the lip singing.
And they all subscribe just to trash it.
I don't know. I don't know why people subscribe there, but I know one thing's for sure. Bad Bunny blew that out of the water.
Is delusional.
And I'm not going to give any participation trophy just because they lost in trying to find ways to reframe the story.
Okay.
The framing
I would
was,
gladly accept the participation trophy of 1 million
The framing was turn the TV off.
So would you.
The framing was turn the TV off and come over here and watch something that's all American. People did not do that. Sorry. That's an L. But you did gain 6 million subscribers. Congratulations. Enjoy those people. Keep giving them Kid Rock.
An insane
keep giving them Kid Rock.
rejection of reality.
No, keep giving them Kid Rock. It's an insane rejection of reality that you have to move the goalpost to figure out a way to make it look like a win. That's the insane reality for the other side, is to continue to move the goal was to affect the NFL's ratings.
That had this increase in subscribers,
but that wasn't the goal.
That had a video that did this well, would be touting this as a huge success. They would be telling donors or advertisers, depending on their business model, it would go in their year-end report as the success of the century for the organization.
That wasn't the stated goal in the beginning. The stated goal was to get people to watch their show instead of the NFL. Did not do that.
All right. When I say my goal is, world conquest, and I settle for having a video perform very well on the channel, I'm still happy with it, okay? Even though I have not yet conquered the entire media. Up next, according to FBI documents, a Florida police chief says that President Trump called him during his investigation of Jeffrey Epstein 20 years ago. We'll be right back. Former police chief from Palm Beach, Florida, Michael Reiter, told the FBI in 2019 that in 2006, his department received a call from President Trump regarding Jeffrey Epstein. Now, Reiter was investigating Jeffrey Epstein in the mid-2000s and was interviewed by the FBI just 2 months after Epstein's death. Writer told the FBI that Trump telephoned him and said, "Thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this." Writer's testimony was part of a 4-page FBI report that was included in the Justice Department's most recent release of the Epstein files, and the ex-police chief confirmed to the Miami Herald on Monday that he was the person whose name was redacted from the files.
Now, the FBI report of Writer's statements revealed that, quote, Trump told him people in New York knew Epstein was disgusting. Trump said Maxwell was Epstein's operative, quote, she is evil, and to focus on her.
Writer told the FBI that Trump told him, quote, he was around Epstein once when teenagers were president and Trump got the hell out of there, quote.
Now, Writer's statements appear to contradict some of Trump's previous comments. Trump told reporters at the Oval Office in 2019 when asked about Epstein-related crimes, quote, no, I had no idea. I had no idea. I haven't spoken to him in many, many years.
The Justice Department said this week, quote, we are not aware of any corroborating evidence that the president contacted law enforcement 20 years ago. But this new revelation did draw reactions on social media from people on both sides of the aisles. Representative Anna Paulina Luna wrote on X, Trump didn't play their game. He helped expose it, and when they couldn't blackmail him, they tried to smear him. News Nation host Batya Ungar-Sargon wrote on X, something tells me the Democrats and their media are about to take President Trump's advice and move on from the Epstein story.
Meanwhile, Democratic strategist Harry Sisson responded to Benny Johnson's post revealing the news on X, writing, quote, Benny Johnson just confirmed that Trump knew about Epstein's abuse of young girls for a long time and still partied with him. He only called police in 2006 after an investigation into Epstein became public. Nice, self-owned Benny. Political commentator Brian Krasenstein added, quote, MAGA is now using this document to pretend that Trump blew the whistle on Epstein and called Maxwell, quote, evil. That's not what happened. Trump contacted the police only after it had become known to him that Epstein was under investigation. He then admitted that he knew Epstein and Maxwell were doing horrible things. In other words, once he knew his, quote, best friend was caught, he likely wanted to pretend he had no involvement, so he was proactive and contacted the police.
That's serious, Cope.
What?
Trump called, apparently, according to this, I don't know whether this is true. This is one person, police investigator, saying this happened. There's no corroboration for it. If it did happen, Trump spoke to him, said Maxwell was evil and Epstein was bad, and look into it. So either he did that, or he didn't, but I mean, can we finally put to bed the idea that Trump had some close association with Epstein or was complicit or knowledgeable about what he was doing and then did nothing about it? Like, this is the whole get Trump aspect of Democrats' witch hunt is, I think, exposed, and it's embarrassing for them. And we can continue going through Epstein files. Obviously, people got named. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. That's fine. But this is not about Trump, and it's not about the Clintons. I say that too. This is not a political, let's stop making it a political witch hunt. Trump has nothing to do with this. Nothing. Nothing.
I think if you look at Trump and the fact that he's saying, again, like we talked about with Elon Musk yesterday, that he has less of a relationship with Epstein than he's suggesting, because obviously if he knew about some criminal acts that were happening and went ahead and told, if we're to believe this person, this law enforcement official, then, you know, it's like, what's the deal? Why was this man, again, to my original questions, operating with impunity for so long when the wealthiest of the wealthy, and then obviously some people in leadership like Bill Clinton maybe or maybe didn't know what he was doing? What is the problem here? Like, why are we talking to police after the fact, after you've had a relationship with him for so long? Like, why are you waiting to come up forward? Why didn't everybody come together and get this man locked up for a longer amount of time than 18 months? I mean, there's real victims here that were.
Because there needs to be a process of. You can't just like.
Yeah, but this whistleblowers happen all the time.
Says, my friend is creepy and evil,
prostituting young underage girls. How is that?
They don't just swoop in and lock you away for a million years. There has to be a process that takes place.
I understand, but my point is, why didn't more people speak up? This is some of the questions that I have. You might have different questions about this case. I want to know why the president didn't say something. Why is he pretending like he didn't know this? He's like, I had no idea.
Well, because then we get into the very difficult, again, this is awkward, and nobody likes when I bring it up. The problem is the so-called victims at the time denied they were being victimized. They lied about their ages, and when confronted by police, they said that nothing wrong had happened to them. was not until much later, years later, after there was money to disperse to them, that they changed their stories. So this whole idea that it's a mystery why it was so lenient is not a mystery. It's not a mystery because the evidence was not, it's compelling now in hindsight because they all changed their stories and we know a lot more. But at the time, the reason it took a while for there to get any movement and because it was lenient is because there was not a lot of actual evidence against him because no one was cooperating with law enforcement. The victims were not cooperating with law enforcement. So the government had to persist in thinking he should be locked up even when the victims themselves didn't say that at the time. So what can you do?
You just have no regard for the fact that he was given such a small amount of prison time, for the fact that people want to know his affiliation with foreign governments. They want to know why he was treated differently than other people who might have committed such terrible crimes.
I just told you why. Because the victims
Yes, but victims were also pressured
evidence.
or feared for their lives in certain cases. Like they've talked about this extensively.
They said that after.
Okay, exactly. So that's a fair statement from a victim of a crime, right? To not want to come forward.
They can't convict you based on a statement the victim makes years in the future. There's no time travel.
Yeah, but I'm saying that people around him knew something was happening. Like everybody, no one looked under the age of 18 to anyone. Everyone just confused about this. Like there's no way that
you can tell whether someone's 17 or 18 by sight.
Can I?
No one can.
But I would suggest if I'm a 40-year-old man, I'll be like, oh, she looks kind of young. This is getting kind of weird. This massage situation is getting kind of weird.
Okay, well, we don't arrest people for weirdness.
Exactly, but if many people are blowing the whistle, then we can try to connect the dots and figure out, okay, let's check flight log, who was on the flights. Let's check all this information. There's more that you can do than just take a victim statement in order to pursue a crime, correct?
There's no victims making statements.
Exactly. So that's why I said there's more that you can do. People could have blown the whistle. You can check a flight manifest. You can see the ages of people that got on
Lindsey,
the plane.
It is the police, investigators, prosecutors go for easy wins. They want a conviction. They want a high conviction rate. So they take slam dunk cases where you have cooperating witnesses and victims who want that person locked up and are going to make incriminating statements about them. That's what they go after. A vague case where victims are not cooperating, then they say, again, they want a conviction, so they say, okay, let's make a deal. You're convicted, you get a lenient. Like, that's how it works in all cases. This is not anomalous. It's not anomalous at all. It seems anonymous later because all the things the victim said about him, those all came out later. So now we're using hindsight to say, why wasn't this dealt with more stridently? It was dealt with the way any case would be dealt with that had a lack of evidence. The evidence is
the common
now.
thread is that there's a lot of questions here about who knew what.
I know, I'm
why they
answering
didn't come
these
forward.
questions.
No, and so I think people can fairly ask that. I don't think that either perspective that we should just drop in and stop asking the president about his affiliations or Bill Clinton. I said both of them should speak multiple times. I don't think we should just drop it, but I also think we should get to the bottom of it, especially because our next topic that we're going to talk about has to do with the people that actually might have criminal attachment to all this. And Congress people are coming forward saying, I have the names and I have information that tells me that they may be criminals also. So that's important to note. So the president knew about those things. That's important to note.
Yeah, stay tuned. We're going to talk about this more later.
Up next, the FBI has retrieved and released footage of a potential suspect related to the investigation of Nancy Guthrie's abduction. Don't go anywhere.
Major developments have taken place in the last 24 hours in the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, which has now entered its day 11.
Arizona authorities detained a man during a traffic stop for questioning, but they ultimately released him from custody early Wednesday. News Nation is reporting that this man is a DoorDash driver. In an interview, the man said he had not heard about Nancy Guthrie, but hopes that she is found safe.
Law enforcement on Tuesday also released surveillance videos and photos of the person they're looking for in the investigation. You can see it on screen right now. That came directly from FBI Director Kash Patel, who posted it on X. He wrote, over the last 8 days, the FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Department have been working closely with our private sector partners to continue to recover any images or video footage from Nancy Guthrie's home that might have been lost or corrupted or inaccessible due to a variety of factors, including the removal of recording devices. The video was recovered from residual data located in back-end systems. Working with our partners as of this morning, law enforcement has uncovered these previously inaccessible new images showing an armed individual appearing to have tampered with the camera at Nancy Guthrie's front door the morning of her disappearance.
Now Patel released additional footage of the individual wearing a ski mask, gloves, and a backpack.
The White House released a statement Tuesday night saying the president encourages any American across the country with any knowledge of the suspect to please call the FBI, who continue to assist state and local authorities. The prayers of the entire White House are with the Guthrie family. Yes, so they held some DoorDash driver, released him. That seems to be a dead end. Those photos and video that appeared on social media yesterday, you can see, we've all kind of tried to parse it. You can see, so he blocks the camera with his hand and then with some kind of flower, and then disables it, he or she, I guess. I saw some speculation about whether it would be a man or a woman.
Yeah.
It's very disturbing. Obviously, this is whatever happened was planned out,
right?
In some sense. Now they go from this and they say, okay, can we identify where these gloves are sold? Can we identify where the coat he's wearing, where was that sold? And hopefully they begin the process of narrowing it down, who it could possibly be, or someone could, I know it seems like, how could you possibly recognize that person? They're wearing a ski mask, but someone could say, hey, that looks like so-and-so. I mean, that's how that's how they've captured people in the past. So I'm glad it's the right decision, obviously, to share these images despite how horrifying they are, and then hope someone knows something and something comes to light. I don't know. This is very, very disturbing, and what a horrifying thing for poor Nancy Guthrie to go through, to have that person show up on your doorstep in the middle of the night. Someone maybe unknown to her, maybe known to her. Who knows? I
was trying to understand, why, with the FBI involved, it would take this long to get footage like that. But then I dug more into it. I know, but also Google owns Nest, and you have to go through certain, you can't just take old information immediately. So I thought, and many times during this investigation, that perhaps the FBI and local law enforcement in Pima County were holding different information from the public as they narrowed in on a suspect and had it all locked in. And I hope that maybe the news and Harvey Levin, who's been all over this on TMZ, were just not giving all the information because they were privy to more and they were about to catch somebody. But as days pass, I'm really oh wow, people across the board might be scrambling here to try to figure out what happened. And so there's just so many different
Right. It sounds like it took them a little bit a time to get that video.
Well, the FBI said they got it the day they posted it. So that means that it took at least 8 days, So that's kind of the scary part.
And you're right. It might be the case that they might have had it, and this was not the case. But you could conceivably imagine a circumstance where they have it but don't want to release it. Mm-hmm. And then if there are no leads, they decide, well, we release it and see what the people have to say.
So everyone's going to stay on top of this, and hopefully we hear some good news soon.
For sure.
Next on Rising, I'll be delving into the fact that Republicans are calling for an investigation now into Bad Bunny's halftime show on Sunday. Please stick around.
All right, Lindsay, I think I already know, but tell me what's in your lens today.
Sigh. So here's what's actually happening. A sitting member of Congress, Tennessee Representative Andy Ogles, has called for an investigation now into Bad Bunny's halftime show, suggesting it amounted to broadcasting, quote, gay pornography during prime time. That is not satire. I really wish it was, but no, that's an official letter to the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Meanwhile, the government is flirting with shutdown drama, immigration policy is in chaos, and Congress is struggling to pass basic functional legislation. But sure, let's launch a federal inquiry into Bad Bunny's halftime show. Republican Representative Mark Alford added this to the chat.
Over to the Bad Bunny, bad performance of the Super Bowl halftime. We are still investigating this. There's a lot of information that has come out about the lyrics. I saw the halftime show, and we're switching back and forth with the TPUSA halftime show.
See, that's the problem. I thought folks like you weren't interested in watching this show. But there you go. You were switching back and forth to watch this and Kid Rock? Or were you just watching Bad Bunny altogether? Oh, you were watching Bad Bunny. Closely, intently, taking notes, the wrong ones. This is giving obsessed. Let's walk through the facts. The Grammy Award-winning Puerto Rican artist did not perform pornography, gay or otherwise. What he delivered was a widely praised celebration of Latin American culture, Puerto Rican pride, and unity. He opened with the statement, "God bless America," then sang primarily in Spanish, listing countries across the Americas. Behind him, a screen read, quote, "The only thing more powerful than hate is love." That's what sparked federal outrage. Before he even hit the stage, conservative figures were primed for war. Homeland Security head Kristi Noem promised ICE would, quote, be all over the Super Bowl. President Donald Trump called the selection, quote, absolutely ridiculous. After the show, the president wrote that it was, quote, an affront to the greatness of America, and that, quote, nobody understands a word this guy is saying. We saw him watching also. For the 100th time, Puerto Ricans are American citizens. Spanish is spoken by over 40 million people in the United States, and America, by definition, includes more than one language, more than one culture, more than one rhythm. The performance was politicized by y'all the moment it was announced, labeled un-American by people like whatever her name is from Fox News, criticized for being in English, for not being in English, framed as indecent without any evidence. That tells us more about the critics than the content. This wasn't about obscenity. It wasn't about federal law. It was about cultural discomfort and the need to turn that discomfort into a culture war headline. If a joyful celebration of Puerto Rican identity made you feel less American, that's not a halftime problem. That's your insecurity problem. And when members of Congress are spending their time investigating choreography while the country is facing real policy challenges, that is not leadership. That's obsession. It's time to get a life and get back to work, please. Real work.
Well,
don't tell me this investigation has any merit or is valid in any way. So just start somewhere else. Pick any point.
What I was going to say is that there's not really going to be any investigation. So you can rest assured, you can be set at ease. There's no actual effort to investigate this. This is just some point scoring for some red meat for the base. There's nothing to investigate. It's not real.
It doesn't annoy you that red meat would be calling a performance that called for unity gay pornography? I mean, it's a little more than red meat. It's like weird and obsessive and like, what are you talking about? I don't get the reference. That doesn't like strike you as odd that that's what Congress members are going on television as the government might shut down in 2 days talking about? Mm-hmm. No?
Yeah, how should I say this? There was not a lot of gay pornography in the
There was none.
show.
There was none.
There was those two guys dancing.
No, that's not. But that's not pornography. They're talking about a violent.
Well, funny enough,
rules.
that was not right because they were clothed. Just the ladies dancing was a little.
Again, not pornography. Doesn't
That shit was
violate
age
FCC
appropriate.
rules. Does not violate FCC rules. So
Yeah.
I just.
If I had very young kids, I don't know that I'd want them watching.
Again, doesn't violate
Little-
FCC rules.
I didn't.
These
say
people are going on
there's
television.
nothing to
These people are
investigate.
writing full statements and going on TV talking about gay pornography. Address the statements being made out of these people's mouths.
Oh.
Address the obsession with Bad Bunny. People who supposedly were going to watch the Kid Rock show. One of those 20 million. But no, they had the other TV on too, watching the most high-rated Super Bowl halftime show of all time.
Usually, right-wing people who are ranting about gay pornography end up knowing more about it than the rest of us. So probably that's often a tell in the past. But there's nothing. Look, we can move on. There's nothing to investigate.
We're not going to talk
didn't
about
like
this
it.
tomorrow. We won't.
We are.
But I just
I
want to
hope.
say, I think that this is, I thought Megyn Kelly was
Okay,
too
but you
far.
don't have
this
to
is
like
a
the
hair
performance. You're not required to have liked
don't
it.
have
If
to.
it wasn't your thing, it's not your
That's
thing. It's
fine. I don't. Any criticism of people who said they didn't like it, that's fine. Turn the TV off.
You've been ready to bite my head off
No,
all week
no.
over this.
I didn't say you don't have to like it. Well, I criticized when we went back
you
and
said,
forth,
Robby,
and
you
you
have to
said,
like this or I'll hurt you.
No.
And I
When
felt
you
threatened. I was like, don't hurt me.
yeah, I know. Yeah, that's
Fine.
Exactly. I'm so
I was
scary.
cowering in my.
Listen, you don't have to like the performance. You said you liked Lady Gaga's part. I accept that. What I don't like
I
is
just
the
said it was
criticism.
unfamiliar to me. I liked the performance fine. It was just unfamiliar. To me.
Right, and you can appreciate the production value. You can turn off the TV.
I liked
you could
all
have
the
watched
little
Kid
trees.
Rock's trash performance. You could have done whatever you like, but people chose to stay just to be critical and spend all their time doing that. And now people are threatening to pass some weird legislation about Bad Bunny's performance when the government is about to shut down. It just seems like a huge waste of time. Megyn Kelly's up in uproar.
Well, it's not a waste of time because nothing's going to happen.
Well, I think
Maybe it was a waste of oxygen to
but
express
the
it on
upheaval,
television.
the upheaval over it all, to me, tells more about the people who are screaming and hollering rather than the actual man who's just enjoying his day.
Well,
now.
they're mad, and you're mad about the Kid Rock one, so everybody's mad.
I wasn't mad about the Kid Rock one. I said it was an L.
You seem mad.
No, seem mad is a microaggression for a black woman that just talks with her hands.
Sorry.
So that's not a good thing to say. That's not a good thing to say. I'm not mad at all. I'm passionate. I'm passionate about the idea.
I'll gaslight you.
I'm passionate about the idea.
What are you talking about?
I'm passionate about the idea that Megyn Kelly seems to think that people speaking Spanish offends her and is un-American. That's what I was passionate about. The fact that she had the nerve and the gall to go on her platform and say, and say Latinos in the way that she did. People in the Latin community were like, what's wrong with you? That's like, you're teetering the line of like deeply offensive. Like you're not part of the community to use this weird fake accent. Like it's racist. So that's what, racism will always get me riled up. But at the end of the day, the funniest part is that people are really so upset about Bad Bunny performing, and even he's done with it. He made one of the biggest performances of his life on the biggest stage. He's happy. He's on tour coming up. And you guys are like so upset about this.
You guys?
Yeah, like everybody in this ethos are like so mad.
I don't care.
Megyn Kelly was doing all this with her hands. I wasn't even doing all that. She's riled up. Kid Rock was literally like doing all this on TV.
You're right,
like
you're perfectly calm. It's just Megyn Kelly.
I talk loud. I could be laughing and I talk loud. I have no inside voice. If I'm trying to tell a secret, that's why I don't really tell secrets. You'll know I'm talking about you. Mm-hmm. That's just the volume at which I speak. I'm from New York, classically. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying that's just what it is. Megyn Kelly can't be racist and expect me to be calm about it. But also, everybody's big mad about the fact that Turning Point's whatever it was that a conference? Was that a concert? No. Performance was an L. You count it as a win. You guys are finding the win, moving the goalposts. Bad Bunny's numbers were a win. Numbers don't lie. That's all I can say.
If you disagree or want a different perspective on this, you can go back and watch my radar from earlier. We are now done with this, and we are
putting it to bed. Good night. Just like your radar, no disrespect.
Bad Bunny.
Put me to bed. So now we can put both things to bed.
All right. Up next, ICE Director Todd Lyons was testifying on Capitol Hill yesterday, and things got a little bit tense. Stay with us. ICE Director Todd Lyons is in the hot seat Tuesday as he answered questions before the House Homeland Security Committee alongside Customs and Border Protection Commissioner Rodney Scott.
Now, Lyons spent much of his time defending his agents' actions and blasted the anti-ICE rhetoric from protesters and elected officials.
We are enhancing public safety, securing our national security, and finally restoring integrity to the immigration system that had been allowed to collapse. This commitment has a cost. We are facing the deadliest operating environment in our agency's history. In fiscal year 2025, death threats against ICE personnel increased more than 8,000%. Assaults on officers have skyrocketed over 1,400%. One officer in Minnesota had his finger bitten off by a protester, egged on by elected officials characterizing our offices as Gestapo or secret police.
But Congressman Dan Goldman pushed Lyons on the Gestapo and secret police comparisons, which led to this clash. Let's take a look.
Do you know what other regimes in the 20th century required similar proof of citizenship?
Yes, sir.
What?
Sir, there was various nefarious regimes that did that.
Is Nazi Germany one?
Yes, but
Is the Soviet Union one?
I honestly,
sir, I'm asking the questions. Is the Soviet Union one?
Yes, sir, but I totally, this is the wrong type of questioning.
I'll tell you what the wrong type of
actually,
thing
sir,
is. Sir, it's my
Holocaust
time.
Museum
Reclaiming my time. People are simply making valid observations about your tactics, which are un-American and outright fascist.
Meantime, Representative Eric Swalwell confronted Lyons about the deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. You'll remember both were shot by ICE last month while protesting the agency's presence in Minnesota, and both were quickly labeled domestic terrorists by administration officials, a move that Lyons says he won't be apologizing for.
Mr. Lyons, will you apologize to the family of Renee Good for being called a domestic terrorist by the president and his leadership?
No, sir.
Why not?
Sir, I welcome the opportunity to speak to the family in private, but I'm not going to comment on any active investigation.
Is she a domestic terrorist?
Sir, I'm not going to comment on the investigation, and the president and Secretary Noem are elected officials. That's their right to their comments.
Will you apologize to the family of Alex Preddy for also being called a domestic terrorist?
Sir, again, I'm not going to speak to any ongoing investigation.
The hearing seemed to come at an inflection point when Representative Lamonica McIver, who was arrested at an ICE facility last year, she clashed with agents there. She asked Lyons if he thought he was going to hell. Let's watch.
Mr. Lyons, do you consider yourself a religious man?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yes. Okay, well, how do you think Judgment Day will work for you with so much blood on your hands?
I'm not going to entertain that question.
Oh,
ma'am.
okay, of course not. Do you think you're going to hell, Mr. Lyons?
I'm not going to entertain.
Of course not.
Gentlelady,
How many government
The gentlelady will
agencies-
suspend. The
How many-
gentlelady will suspend.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just asking a question. You guys are always talking about religion here in the Bible. I mean, it's okay for me to ask a question, right?
That exchange quickly went viral, drawing outrage from the right. The Trump War Room account on X described McIver as deranged, writing in part, "What a freak!" And House Republicans writing in their own post, "Unhinged. Democrat Lamonica McIver is currently under indictment for assaulting ICE agents. She had a total meltdown during a Homeland Security hearing, telling acting ICE Director Todd Lyons he's going to hell." This is why I don't like these hearings. I don't know what the point of any of that was. Democrats should be questioning the tactics used by ICE, not morally grandstanding. That's what this ridiculous thing that she did. Ridiculous to now, they should have never labeled. They should have never said domestic terrorist in the first place, and they wouldn't be in the position of having to comment on the fact that they shouldn't have said that before they did the investigation. This hearing would be constructive if it was about, what are the reasons for wearing masks? What about, body cams? This is what the funding of DHS is now. We all agree on the body cam footage is stalled over, I think, whether they're going to be masked or not. Some discussion of that. Instead, it was all moral grandstanding.
Well, I think these hearings...
You're going to hell. You're going to hell. Great.
Yeah, I think these hearings on both sides of the aisle are largely
Purely
theatrical.
performative.
They're supposed to be taking clips from both Republicans and Democrats that pull clips and fundraise. That's what they do with these hearings. And so it's not beneficial to the American public. You named several ways that it could be. I think that there could have been a real conversation about the difference between eliminating ICE and putting guardrails on ICE. Obviously, the American public and federal government understand that it's a good thing to have body cameras on these ICE agents because 3,000 have already been administered. I believe there's 13,000 ICE agents on the streets total in America. And so we need 10,000 more.
They're all for them.
Yeah, so that's why they implemented that. But there are some other things, which is why our government might partially shut down, that are not being addressed, like not arresting people near churches or schools, like officials not wearing masks, like being held to the same accountability standards that local law enforcement are held to. So if something goes wrong, there's a thorough, impartial investigation into law enforcement officials, and they're not ultimately protected with immunity, like we heard J.D. Vance say, by our federal government. So there's some conversations that Democrats are trying to have and probably going to stand firm on that may lead to a government shutdown because Republicans have to come to the table and talk about this stuff. Like we talked about a CBS poll yesterday where most Americans, a majority, are saying that ICE has now gone too far. And so if we just look at the deaths of Alex Preddy and Renee Good, anybody who's in leadership in the federal government should be able to say, we overspoke about calling this a domestic terrorism, specifically when you talk about Alex Preddy. I mean, we should definitely be able to say that, right? I mean, that both of them should be.
All right. They made claims. They said he approached law enforcement, gun drawn, which was not accurate. So.
And I think that it's not just Democrats that were like stoking the flame in there. You had the representatives from ICE that were saying things like, we will not be intimidated. We will not. And so when you're going in there with that type of attitude, we
will not be intimidated.
Yeah, we're not trying. They didn't come in there to try to intimidate them. They came to, and the question about, are you going to hell? Whatever that exchange was too much.
They're getting 8,000% increase or whatever is in threats. There are people trying to intimidate them.
No, he's talking about by the questioning. He's saying, like, we're not going to be intimidated while he was in there. And it's like, well, the whole point of a hearing is to ask questions. They weren't supposed to be pleasant for your liking. And so I just think, like, we don't need the theatrics, but we do need some solutions. And the more that no one makes it
hostile.
But there's no concessions being made. And so the real question is, what is Congress doing with this information? If there was any serious, valid information that came from this hearing yesterday, how does this push us forward to getting real reforms done that make sense and are common sense for most Americans with ICE agents?
Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg appears to be the latest billionaire to ditch California as he's reportedly buying a new mansion in Florida. We'll be right back.
Meta CEO, Facebook co-founder Mark Zuckerberg has reportedly bought a mansion in Florida with his wife Priscilla.
The property is part of a gated community on a small island in Miami that's commonly referred to as Billionaire Bunker. A report from the Wall Street Journal reads, quote, "The couple is purchasing a newly completed waterfront mansion on Miami's Indian Creek, according to sources with knowledge of the transaction." Zuckerberg is the latest tech billionaire to descend on Miami as California proposes a 5% billionaire tax. Florida offers no state income tax, which for billionaires like Zuckerberg and Bezos adds up to millions of dollars.
The move drew reactions online, especially from those who feel it's another sign of California's tax laws pushing the ultra-wealthy away. I've been saying this for a while now. Representative Kevin Kiley from California says now Zuckerberg's leaving too. Newsom's disastrous policies and the proposed wealth tax are driving away our citizens and our tax dollars. The state's finances are a house of cards on the brink of collapse. This comes as Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders is set to appear in Los Angeles next week to lead the charge for the new 5% wealth tax on billionaires in California. According to the LA Times, supporters of the initiative are currently attempting to gather enough signatures for their proposal to go on to ballots this November.
Other Democrats, including California Governor Gavin Newsom, are against the proposal, but Sanders says in a statement, quote, "This initiative would provide the necessary funding to prevent over 3 million working-class Californians from losing the health care they currently have and would help prevent the closures of California hospitals and emergency rooms. It should be common sense that the billionaires pay just slightly more so that entire communities can preserve access to life-saving medical care."
Well.
Mark Zuckerberg also has a house in the DMV area somewhere. What does it mean that you're buying another property? It means you're definitely leaving California, or are you buying another
Bye-bye.
property?
I think
no one has facts. Did he talk to somebody on record at the New York Times or somewhere and say, "Yeah, I'm getting out of California"? Yeah, that's it. No one knows. So this is all speculative. He might just be buying another house because he's a billionaire and can do that. A lot of people have.
Well, it's interesting. The compound he'd assembled in California was he kept buying. I did a little bit of digging into it because he kept buying like houses that are next to each other to make like one extended giant property. And during the pandemic, I did radar on this. You might remember he put his kids in homeschooling, and he did it for all the kids or a couple kids. So they were drop off, pick up in the neighborhood. The neighbors were mad about it. Anyway. No, I think they're going to Florida.
Oh, because the neighbors told on them for that situation?
Yeah, I think they were sick of their annoying neighbors too. And they're sick of Gavin Newsom, and they're sick of...
Gavin Newsom is against this.
Yeah, but he's not able to stop it. They're sick of Democrats ruining the state, like Bernie Sanders, who wants to milk those billionaires. Look, you can't just fix your state's budgeting problems by trying to confiscate the wealth from your most productive citizens, because they're going to go elsewhere. And California's loss is Florida's gain. Good for them.
Look, I told
Florida's
you.
going to be a new hub of tech innovation.
I told you how I feel about the California wealth tax. I don't think it's a good idea. They tried this in 2024, and it was largely ineffective and did not pass to law. I do think California is the state with the most billionaires. So do I think, if your kids are going to be well off, that you could spare a couple dollars to help out the greater good? Yeah, you probably should. But do I think it needs to be on paper at one of the most highest tax states already? I don't know. It seems like a bit much. So, as somebody who wants to aspire towards that billionaire American dream, if that even is one, it just is like you don't want to then have to give more than like everything you've made. But also, like, what are you doing with all that money? People really argue that, like, really, what you never will run out of money. Your generations to come. Like, why can't you just give a couple back to the community that helped make you such a success?
Because in Florida, they don't have to.
Yeah, I know. So, but he's not only going to Florida. He's going to live in D.C. right now. He has 3 homes.
I mean, but think about this for a second. They're saying, they can't afford the medical system, the hospital system. So this is speaking to medical entitlements. This is the whole problem in our society. We already spend, as a country, more money into our medical care system than any other advanced nation. We're already doing that. So where is this money going if we still somehow don't have enough money to provide the care that we need? And we all know the answer to that. It's for middle managers in the healthcare system and maybe to some extent drug companies. I'm all for negotiating drug prices. That's a Trump innovation I agree with completely. We should
Yeah, but
negotiate to get the prices
just
down.
to point out to that, the criticism about that Trump policy that he suggested or is implementing with the prescription drugs is that it may not lower costs for Americans, but what it will do is rise costs for other nations, making us equal. He was upset that other nations might have paid less than us. It doesn't necessarily mean that ours are going to be cheaper. It just means that theirs could rise up to ours, and so we don't see the effects
Well,
of
they'll
that
probably
yet.
equalize somewhat. And if we did patenting reform and licensing reform, we could bring some of those costs down. Everybody always points to insulin as what being so expensive. Well, I've looked at it. Its patent is absurd. There should be generic competition to a much greater degree than there is. That's a government protection for the makers of insulin that we don't need to have. That's anti-competitive practice mandated by government. So I'd fix that. I'd fix again the way the insurance markets in healthcare work, where you don't understand the price of everything, and so they can increase the price just so that middle managers are making more money. So we needed fundamental reform to the system. We don't need more money in the system. We're already spending more money than any other nation. So the idea that we'll just fix it if we could just take more money from billionaires and throw it into a system that pays that out to those pharmacy middle manager type people, that's not gonna cut, or pensions of government employees, systems that no one has pensions anymore except government employees. That's dodo birded. That's insane, and because people live much longer into retirement age. So fix those things. Don't just say, okay, we'll just take more money from wealthy people because they're going elsewhere.
I agree with you.
How about that?
My biggest criticism about the whole thing is that there are a lot of people that agree with you, whether it's Democrats or Republicans, but let's focus on Republicans right now because the government shut down because Democrats wanted to put a Band-Aid on it, which wasn't a permanent solution. But what are the Democrats' proposals for health care? Because President Trump's Big Health Act, or whatever name he titled it, has no information that is plausible towards bringing down costs.
Concepts of a plan.
Exactly. Concepts of a plan do not work. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, after all these years and all this complaining about Obamacare, what is the plan? Just let me know one, especially for the people who are most critical of it. If we tried Obamacare and people think that that was a fail and don't like how it turned out, propose an alternative that's actually effective.
I'm not an expert in this area of policy, but free market think tanks have healthcare policies that they've recommended, like Cato and AEI and Heritage and Competitive Enterprise Institute. Those are all places that have great plans that I would recommend Republicans adopt speedily. That does it for us today on Rising Live. Thanks so much for watching. Look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way later today. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're available somewhere out there on the internet. Check us out. Bye-bye. Congressman Ro Khanna bringing more attention to the Epstein files as he read aloud the names of these 6 people that he and Thomas Massie say are likely incriminated in the files.
The Democrat from California is one of the co-authors of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, along with Republican Thomas Massie. Both men have been highly critical of how the Department of Justice has handled the files, saying that there are far too many names redacted.
Now, here was Khanna reading the names on Tuesday.
These men are Salvatore Navora, Zorab Mikaladze, Leopig Leonor, Nicola Caputa, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, CEO of Dubai Ports World, and billionaire businessman Leslie Wexner, who was labeled as a co-conspirator by the FBI.
Khanna previously noted that being named in the files is not an automatic indicator of guilt. And for now, none of these 6 men have been directly accused of wrongdoing. Khanna also directly called out the DOJ and FBI, accusing the latter of scrubbing the files last year to keep names from being made public.
If we found 6 men that they were hiding in 2 hours, imagine how many men they are covering up for in those 3 million files. The Epstein Transparency Act requires them to unredact those FBI files. And yet the Justice Department said to me and to Congressman Massie, we just uploaded whatever the FBI sent us. And guess what? The FBI sent scrubbed files.
This comes as members of Congress are now able to view unredacted versions of the files for the first time. Khanna and Massie both availed themselves of that opportunity. Massie did not read any names from the House floor yet. He did suggest he may do so at some point, calling it the nuclear option.
Meanwhile, Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick admitted to visiting Epstein's Island during testimony he gave on Tuesday. He previously told Congress that he cut off all contact with Epstein in 2005, but He claimed, but that claim appeared to be contradicted by email exchanges between the two. Now he says he met with Epstein during a family vacation in 2012. Let's take a look.
Over the next 14 years, I met him 2 other times that I can recall. 2 times. And that is none for 6 years. So 6 years later, I met him. And then a year and a half after that, I met him, and never again.
Lutnick has also not been accused of any wrongdoing with Epstein. He is facing calls to resign because he made misleading statements. Khanna wrote on X, if in Norway the princess no longer has the support to be queen, and if in the UK King Charles is now calling for a criminal investigation into his own brother, then surely in the United States of America, Howard Lutnick must resign. So this was a pretty dramatic moment.
You got
yesterday.
what you wanted.
Right. But here's what I'm still confused about, because Khanna and Thomas Massie said there were 6 people that were highly incriminated, or likely incriminated, excuse me. Likely incriminated was the exact phrasing. And then Khanna read those names. Incriminated in what sense? What do they think is criminal about whatever they did? Is it abuse of underage women? That's what I take them to mean. That sort of seems like what's implied to me. Which, if true, and the FBI or the DOJ had evidence of that going years back and did nothing, that is a huge scandal. But now, we have conflicting accounts, because Pam Bondi said there was a client list. Turned out there was not a client list, or they never released one. A list of people who were, for whom Epstein was procured. Like, this was the central idea of the Epstein myth, right? That he was procuring underage women for other elite men to have sex with. And we've not seen any evidence of that. And Pam Bondi suggested that that was true because she had a client list. I think she just didn't know what she was talking about. Kash Patel subsequently said, we have no evidence of anyone involved with underage persons except Epstein himself and Ghislaine Maxwell, who helped procure them for Epstein. The procuring was for Epstein. It was not done by Epstein for someone else. Now they're saying there's 6 men who are what exactly? That Sultan character and Wexner, those names Massie did tweet about. And the Sultan, I've read emails between him and Epstein where they discuss women and they're kind of gross. Those emails don't contain evidence that the Sultan character participated in sexual misconduct. So what do they mean by incriminated? I'm genuinely curious.
And I think
what that means.
I think Khanna and Massie are giving the floor to the Department of Justice in their mind to do what they think is the right thing. So, like I said yesterday, they're trying to leave space for the Department of Justice to say these names that they think were intentionally redacted and protected by the FBI, and want to understand the reasoning why. And now that they've said the names and they think that the FBI went out of its way and Kash Patel's team went out of its way to scrub these names from the files intentionally, when they think that they have incriminating evidence against these people that were named, they want to connect the dots for everybody. Right. They're looking at stuff and saying, wait, why did you do this?
Well,
why did the FBI
incriminating
say
evidence? Well, what is the crime?
Well, that's what I said. We need to, if we're giving space for people to, like the Department of Justice and FBI to say it first, maybe tomorrow, Thomas Massie and Khanna will say more. But the fact that they have boldly, and they've taken the charge on this of trying to be the people that continue to push this forward, whether you like it or not. It's a bipartisan team that's pushing this forward. So the fact that they're still moving forward and asking for more answers, they should get the answers that they're looking for. If there's nothing here, then there's nothing here. There'll be even more reason to release everything.
Yeah, I didn't
these
say
guys'
there's nothing
names.
here. This is
no. I'm saying
right.
If they're, why would they go so far as to say likely incriminating, knowing that this could soon turn into an entire whirlwind storm if these people are not actually incriminated, where now you have started to defame their character constantly. You're going on air, you're on X.
Well, so he's on the House floor.
Yes,
Those
he's protected, but then he also is on
protected.
X saying some more stuff. So it's like you're going pretty far if you don't have some solid evidence there. So because Khanna and Thomas Massie have been pretty transparent throughout their entire process of this, I'm going to continue to listen and follow along with what they're saying and as they reveal things, and just hope that if they're going this hard, that maybe that there is some evidence to back up what they're saying. And if not, then eventually you're going to start saying the same thing in a week. Why haven't you told us what the charges are? Why haven't you told us what the implications are? What these people are, you think that they've done?
Or why don't you tell me, it might not even be in the files, it might be, okay, the victims, tell me what the victims can speak up, or the victims can relay the information to you, and you can speak up about what happened. If these people are incriminated in sexual crimes, their victims, did they pay off the victims? Is that why they're not, as I said, there were some settlements. I don't know. That's what we're waiting for.
And some of the people, I didn't know all of them, but some of them that I understand just from understanding who they were are some pretty powerful people. So again, that whole conversation that we had yesterday about possibly getting
sounds
sued.
like largely foreign people.
Yes.
Not Leslie Wexner is a prominent businessman. That's the only one of these people I had ever heard of.
Yeah.
He's I think owner of Victoria's Secret, or owns the parent company of Victoria's Secret, and has been considered to be an associate of Epstein.
Yeah.
Which, again, can reflect on your moral judgment of the person, but it's not just associating with Epstein is not evidence of some criminal wrongdoing. Now, you could be mad at Howard Lutnick is now being grilled because he said, and all these people said, we've cut off ties. Oh, we did actually meet him later. If that's in your mind, you're like, okay, he lied. He should not be Commerce Secretary. You can have that view. But that is different than there being something to charge.
Yeah, the story's certainly not going away.
Right.
We have a lot to talk about. Stay with us on Rising. There's lots of action happening right now in Democrat politics. This week, the House is scheduled to vote on the so-called Save America Act, which requires proof of citizenship, like a passport or birth certificate, to register to vote. Some election analysts say that the act could potentially prevent millions of people from voting. Democrats have rallied against it. Here's what Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer had to say earlier this month.
I want to be very clear. The SAVE Act is dead on arrival in the Senate, and every single Senate Democrat will vote against any bill that contains it. It has nothing to do with protecting our elections and everything to do with federalizing voter suppression. The SAVE Act is nothing more than Jim Crow 2.0.
A White House spokesperson told Axios that the president is pushing the SAVE Act because he cares deeply about the safety and security of America's elections. Meanwhile, some Democrats are trying to wade into the Epstein files debacle by making it an issue of the elites versus the little guy. Here was a viral moment from Senator John Ossoff this past weekend.
They are the elites they pretend to hate. So prices are up, jobs are going away, Medicaid and school lunches are slashed, nursing homes are getting defunded. If you're Steve Bannon and your pitch was Trump for the forgotten man and woman, how do you sell any of this? Trump was supposed to fight for the working class. Instead, he's literally closing rural clinics and hospitals to cut taxes for George Soros and Elon Musk.
Now, of course, there is currently no evidence that has been reported from the Epstein files of criminal wrongdoing by Trump or Elon Musk, George Soros, or anyone in the White House cabinet. And another major issue sweeping the political landscape is funding for DHS. Democrats are setting conditions before a deal gets done, with Schumer saying on Tuesday, quote, "We simply want ICE to follow the same standards that most law enforcement agencies across America already follow." Democrats await the next answer from our Republican counterparts. To discuss all of these issues, I know I said a lot, with me is former White House counsel to President Obama, Jason Green. Jason has a new book out on February 17th titled Too Precious to Lose. It follows Jason's journey uncovering the story of his hometown in rural Maryland and how he was stunned to find that the community no longer existed. Jason, welcome to Rising.
Thank you, Lindsay. Great to be with you.
So, Jason, I want to start with, let's start with your book, because you talk about how people and faith might put unlikely pairs together. We have a lot of unlikely pairings happening in our Congress right now, from Khanna and Thomas Massie pairing together to push forward on the Epstein files, or people who have disparate takes on how ICE should move forward. What do you think is the common ground here to show people how to communicate across the aisle, since you probably have some alignment with that from working with Obama?
Yeah, so I spent 4.5 years as associate White House counsel, and I left because there was a forcing event in my life. And I think what I'm hearing you ask is, how do we use these forcing events to really move issues forward? In my life, I got a call that my then 95-year-old grandmother had fallen ill, was in the hospital, and I used that as an opportunity to go and sit with her and spend time learning her story. I think you set up that there are a number of other forcing events that are happening in our politics that people need to use these occasions to bringing together what some might call strange bedfellows. But there's real opportunity to find common ground. We're seeing this in workforce. We're seeing this around common sense immigration reforms. We're seeing this around the Epstein files, where you may not normally have folks that are coming together to move policy forward, but these forcing events offer an opportunity, a unique opportunity to come together and try and move something forward.
Now, you worked a lot with voter registration efforts, and when you talk about the Save America Act and your past experiences, talk about what your perspective is as you see this continuing to be pushed forward.
Sure. So as you know, Lindsay, I was the National Voter Registration Director for the 2008 Obama campaign. And then while I was Associate White House Counsel, I helped draft the executive order that created the Presidential Commission on Election Administration. And what you see when you look back at that executive order from 2013 is an acknowledgement that there are components of our elections that could use attention. We wanted to expand access for all eligible voters and make that process easier for them. When you look at the SAVE Act, and you teed this up in your lead, that's not what the SAVE Act is intending to do. SAVE Act, you heard it pretty strongly from Senator Schumer. He called it Jim Crow 2.0. When you're talking about, including proof of citizenship at the point of voter registration, when you're talking about voter IDs when voting, and restricting access to mail-in voting, we need to ask the question of who is this going to impact? Right? This is framed in the context of trying to increase election integrity, but we have to acknowledge that that's a problem that actually hasn't been articulated. There aren't documented cases of widespread voter fraud or inintegrity in our voting systems. And so the question is, what is this actually trying to be responsive to? What you saw when we wrote the executive order in 2013, as I mentioned, an acknowledgement that there are issues. We want to shorten lines. We want to improve election administration, but this doesn't do that. If you were really concerned about ensuring that eligible voters had the integrity and access to the polls, then you would see some of those common sense reforms in this bill. Instead, what this is doing is having disparate impact on those who are financially marginalized, who are elderly and disabled, who are going to have a great deal of difficulty, like my grandmother did when she was 95 and we couldn't find her birth certificate. She wouldn't have been able to register to vote. And then on these ideas of being able to demonstrate IDs at your point of polling, if you look at bipartisan centers who are saying that that's going to disparately impact millions of Americans who are eligible to vote but won't have the documentation. So that's really what we should be talking about, is how do we increase access for those that are eligible to vote and improve election administration for all Americans.
Now, let's talk a little bit about another huge issue of the moment, the economy. I mean, a lot of people have said that they were voted on the economy the last election, and that's why Trump had a second shot at the White House. When people look at polling right now, you'll see that most Americans are not happy with how the economy is going, and they still feel like a very tight crunch in their wallets. So Democrats have been positioned to have an opportunity to respond to this, but it can't just be we're going to do something different than Trump, or we're going to do the same thing that Biden did. So what do you think the messaging should be at this point? Because we're not hearing clear, consistent messaging throughout the party.
I think that's a good point. And I would add to what you said on Trump's rise, and as it ties to the last topic, I think in addition to the point on the economy that you just made, you also saw Trump's rise around distrust around elections. And so the idea that the SAVE Act or Donald Trump is interested in increasing integrity in elections is laughable from someone who sort of rose to political prominence around the birtherism on President Obama, and then questioning election integrity of his own election. So I think that that's an important frame. And then connecting it to the economy, as you just did, I think it's really important for the Democratic Party in these midterms to sort of, it seems obvious, but they really need to talk to the American people and demonstrate to the American people that they care about ensuring that the American experience for American people is improving. So that includes the economy, as you pointed out. We just saw, I think today, recently, readjustments of some of the job numbers from 2025. In fact, there was limited growth throughout the year. And so you have Americans who don't feel like the economy is really working for them, their pocketbook and grocery issues, even though you see, gains at the stock market level. When you think about everyday Americans who are really feeling that pinch, they don't feel like the economy's actually been working for them. Similarly, democracy. I think people see it playing out in their television screens, that they feel democracy backsliding and they want to participate. They want to be called into action. And then I feel like we have to talk about the fact that immigration doesn't really align with people's values. And so all of these issues are where I think the Democratic Party really needs to focus itself and frame the conversation around the things that Americans truly care about, that are going to move their pocketbooks, and to articulate a message that the Democrats care about making their lives better.
We're inching closer, speaking of immigration, to a potential partial government shutdown in a couple of days. And Democrats are really seemingly holding the line when it comes to DHS funding. Do you think they should continue with this and really hold the line, or do you think that affecting TSA and FEMA and other parts of the government are not worth continuing to push forward with these ideas?
I think it's a really good question, and it kind of goes back to your first question about these forcing events, Lindsay. And so there's a moment I think that it was smart to be able to separate the spending package from the larger package so that the rest of the government was able to be funded. And so now there can be a real conversation around these tactics. I mean, I think it's important to step back and remember what we're talking about. The context around ICE and immigration enforcement right now, particularly in Minnesota, where you had 2 Americans unnecessarily killed by American law enforcement for exercising, you could argue, their constitutional rights. And so this is the moment, I would think, to have this conversation. Senator Schumer has framed this as pretty common sense reforms, where removing masks, judicial warrants, the inclusion of body cameras, really trying to ensure that ICE is in line with other law enforcement agencies across the country. You'll hear, again, bipartisan groups talk about the adoption of some of these practices, community policing practices, decades ago, because they realized that they both make their agents, their officers, safer, and they also provide protection for the people that they're sworn to serve and protect. And so I think that this is the exact right time to use this forcing event, this potential government shutdown, to have these really important conversations, this values-driven conversation around who we are, who we want to be, and the way in which we're going to implement our policies.
Yeah, I think a lot of people talk about what the American message is, the values that we should all have in common. Like, we can have different strategies to get to the finish line, but the values should all kind of be in line. So what, finally, before we go, do you think that your book, Too Precious to Lose, would have as far as antidotes for both parties to take away from and really learn about how to maybe talk to each other or communicate or really get to the goalpost, which we may not agree how to get there, but it should be the same?
It's a really good question, Lindsay. And so my book, Too Precious to Lose, sort of starts with this question that the great Dr. Martin Luther King posed in 1967. And in his last book, before he was assassinated, he asked, where do we go from here, chaos or community? And I think that's truly a question for our time. I think some of the policies that you're seeing put forward by Donald Trump are trying to sow chaos around the SAVE Act, around ICE enforcement. This is really intended to suppress activity. But what's pretty beautiful is you see communities coming together, some of the protests, some of the student engagement. You're seeing civic activation. And so what I would say is, in these moments of chaos and confusion, there is a natural tendency to withdraw, to isolate, to try and reach for control. But what we've seen time and time again in the community that I descended from and other communities across the country is that the opposite of chaos is not control, it's connection. And so we need to find ways to stand together, to come together, and allow people to feel as though they can be a part of these solutions, that we can build an economy that works for Americans, that we can imbue values in the way in which we enforce our immigration laws, and that we can build the democracy that we all deserve. And the only way to do that is by encouraging people to actually participate.
Jason Green, thank you so much. Thanks for joining Rising. I hope to see you again soon.
So great. Thank you, Lindsay. Have a blessed.
We have a lot more to talk about on Rising. Stay with us.